وعليكم السلام. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أم حسبتم أن تدخلوا الجنة ولما يعلم الله الذين جاهدوا منكم ويعلم الصابرين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة قاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، سيما بقية الله في الأرضين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You know what to do. Fantastic. Brilliant. Okay, I'm glad you guys can hear me. We're going to be continuing now with the story of Musa alayhi salam. So, 2 sessions ago, we ended right where the people of Musa alayhi salam, they took the cow as an object of worship. Again, a very visually impactful motif that you see recurring throughout the Quran, this golden cow, this yellow cow. Subhanallah. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go and look at, we discussed a little bit about the golden cow, perhaps some of the, the ideas behind it, and how you guys need to actually go and do your own research about the cow itself, how it's a visualization of this, essentially this jinn that they used to worship and they still worship to this day. There is a dunyawi benefit, a worldly benefit to conducting that kind of polytheism. Don't think that it's just something that they just did for no reason. No, there's always a reason. Now we're going to go to Surah A'raf, verse 150. So that's Surah 7, 150, if you guys would like to follow along. Moses returns to his people, and it says, and when Moses returned to his people, angry and grieved, he said, how wretched is that by which you have replaced me after my departure. And he threw down the tablets, his brother, by the hair of his head, maybe by his beard, pulling him towards him, and said, Harun said rather, O son of my mother, indeed the people oppressed me and were about to kill me. So let not the enemies rejoice over me, and do not place me among the wrongdoing people. So that's the meaning. Now we're going to recite the Arabic, inshallah, so that that meaning goes down into our hearts. And as always, dear brothers and sisters, be prepared to extrapolate your own ideas. ولما رجع موسى إلى قومه غضبان أسفا قال بئس ما خلفتموني من بعدي أعجلتم أمر ربكم وألقى الألواح وأخذ برأس أخيه يجره إليه قال ابن إن القوم استضعفوا كادوا يقتلونني فلا تشمت بي الأعداء ولا تجعلني مع القوم الظالمين. It's actually a very poignant and sad verse. I want to go through it a little bit so that we can, gain as much as we can in this short sitting from this verse. And the first thing that I want to point out is that Musa alayhi salam was angry. He wasn't just angry, he was asifa. غضبانا أسفا. غضباnan, it means angry, literally wrathful, right? So when we're saying غير المغضوب عليهم, right? In Surah Fatiha, when we repeat that, that sentiment of the wrath of Allah is contained within this word, which is now describing the emotions of Musa alayhi salam. غضبانا, he was wrathful, angry, and he was asifa. Asifa. This is kind of some of you might be familiar with the Farsi or Urdu. You know, when you say it's afsoos, it's so regretful, it's so sad that despite all of these miracles that you have seen and being in the presence of your prophet, oh, you've gone and done this. Try and mix those two emotions, this sheer anger and wrathfulness with absolute heartbreak. That's what Musa alayhi salam is feeling. And I've mentioned this before. We should also align ourselves with the Quran to such a level we also know it's an emotional response from us. Then he says, it is so wretched, so evil. Sama, it is so just crooked, vile that you have done this after my departure. And remember, he's only gone into the mountain. That's it. And yeah, those were literally just 40 days. Because in other places in the Quran, when it mentions the number 40, it could be alluding to a greater number of time. For example, when it long, it was far as I know, and you guys, if you've dug something else out of the hadith, you're more than welcome to share it. But as far as I know so far, the common consensus is that it was literally 40 days. And like that, having seen all those miracles, they've not just committed a they've committed the mother of all crimes. And you can see and feel the disbelief in Musa alayhi salam, not disbelief in the sense of kufr, but the absolute shock of seeing his people revert to polytheism. And I'd like to point out something else here. Remember, way back beginning of this entire story, we talked about how Pharaoh, one of the things that he would do is kill their men and keep their women alive. He mentioned back then as well, and I want to remind you that one of the things that happened is a mixing of DNA, right? Because those women were taken as slaves and they were used um, those kinds of purposes. And again, just think about how tragic that really was. But the point is, it wasn't just the mixing of their genetic code, but it was a mixing of their cultures. And so some of the evil in Egypt, right, and all those gods that they worshipped from Ra, Amut, and the god of the sun and the god of the sky and the earth and Nut and all of those gods that they had, some of those ethics, those evil ethics, right on, and these people actually brought those diseases with them rather than severing their ties with that evil culture of the Egyptians. Okay, so yeah, also have to understand this, that there is a physical migration that you can do. But if that physical migration is not accompanied with a spiritual migration, then even if you go physically from your home and you go to the land of the Prophet or the land of Imam Zaman, if Surah 5, verse 21. Okay, so Surah 5, verse 21. Musa now commands his people. This is where all of the destiny gets wrapped up. This is where you really understand the crux issue and you can truly relate it to today's world. Musa says, "O my people, enter the Holy Land, which Allah has assigned to you, and do not turn back from fighting in Allah's cause, and thus become losers." Musa is telling Bani Israel to enter where? The Holy Land. Where is the Holy Land, dear brothers and sisters? It is Palestine. And he tells them, it is your duty to fight the oppressors and do not turn back, fighting in Allah's cause, and thus become losers. يا قول الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم. It has been written for you. ولا ترتدوا على أدباركم فتنقلبوا خاسرين. We have, and you know what, I'm not even going to say that point. I'm going to wait for somebody to ask it, inshallah, during the Q&A session. If somebody is curious about it, they'll ask it and then I'll answer it there. But there's a different point that I want us to focus on here, and that is the fact that they are being commanded to fight. How much of the Quran is about fighting? It's undeniable. Dear brothers and sisters, almost every surah of the Quran has an underlying current, a thematic current about struggle against the wrongdoers and oppressors. And yet that just so happens neglected themes, which is hardly ever discussed by the majority of the scholars. That should be a pain in your heart. And that should be a huge question, that why is the Quran emphasizing this much about it, and yet this theme is never discussed, hardly ever. And the few scholars who discuss it are cast aside as social pariahs. Why? What's going on here? Even in this story, Musa is commanding his people to fight against the oppressors. What is the response of the people of Musa, of the Israel? Let's go to now, skip ahead to verse 24, and you're going to see what the response is. And this is the verse that I often recite to highlight this issue for people. They said, "O Moses, indeed, we will never enter it, ever, as long as those enemies are within it. So go, you and your Lord, and fight. Indeed, we are sitting right here." Right? Some translations will say we are remaining right here. It literally means we're going to sit right here. We are sitting right here. You go with your Lord. قالوا يا موسى إنا لن ندخلها أبدا ما داموا فيها فاذهب أنت وربك قاتلا إنها هنا قاعدون. So why is this such a point that I want to emphasize to us today? Dear brothers and sisters, we know that there are enemies not only of Islam, but of humanity. Enemies who kill children, who kill women, who snatch resources, who make the masses poor, who tread on the rights of the oppressed masses. We know that such enemies exist. What is the mentality that we have unfortunately adopted? This mentality. We're not going to fight. It's Imam Mahdi's job to fight. We will be sitting right here. And look how telling this verse is. They don't just say you go and fight. They say you go with your Lord. فَاذْهَبْ أَنْتَ وَرَبُّكَ. فَقَاتِلَا. You go with your Lord and fight. Why is this so revealing for us? Because of the mentality that we have. We know that Imam of the time can perform miracles, that he has the ability to perform all the miracles of the prophets of the past, just like Musa. And just like Bani Israel said to their prophet, why should we go and fight? Man, you can part the ocean. You can cause fireballs to come down from the sky. You can pick up a mountain. You can make swarms of locusts and fleas, and you can make all waters turn into blood. You can make a fire whirlwind thing appear, man. You go with your Lord and fight. Why should we risk our necks? This was the mentality of Bani Israel. They missed the point. Your job in the world is to serve the Imam of the time. It is not his job to serve you. And I would like to quote here Ahmad Deedat. Ahmad Deedat, for those of you who don't know, he's one of the great polemists of the Muslim world, and he would often debate with the Christians, he would debate with the Hindus, and he did a lot of phenomenal work, right? He was from the Sunni world, but one can't deny the good things that he has done. He came to Iran back in those days, by the way, teacher of Dr. Zakir Naik, right? Who Sayyid Abdullah was mentioning him in a previous session as well. Ahmad Deedat actually was the teacher of Dr. Zakir Naik. And Ahmad Deedat, may Allah rest his soul, when he was alive, he came and visited Iran. When he visited Iran, he witnessed Imam Khomeini with his own eyes. Bearing in mind, he was a Sunni, and yet he said, and I quote, "When I saw that man, I had already risen to my feet, and my eyes flooded with tears. There is something about that man, the moment you see him, you begin to cry. There was so much light coming out of his face. And everything about Imam Khomeini was what? The Quran. He was a walking, talking manifestation of the Quran. Everything that he said was the Quran. There was nothing about Imam Khomeini except the Quran." This is a Sunni talking about him. And then he talked about the people of Iran and the Shia. And he said, listen, and he said, they are not like us. We are those who took the Mahdi as our servant. Why? We see that the world is a mess, and we want the Mahdi to come to clean up this mess, like our servant. They, the Iranians, bearing in mind, this is back then, when the Islamic Revolution was still fresh, he said, they see themselves as the servants of Imam Mahdi. They say the world is a mess. We are going to clean it up before he arrives. This is the mentality of the true servants of the Mahdi alayhi salam. And this is a mentality that the majority of the Shias need to learn. Where can you learn it? From the Quran. Remember, we said much of the Quran is just a warning. Don't be like the Jews. Don't be like Bani Israel. Don't repeat the same mistakes that they performed, But the unfortunate reality is that we are repeating those same mistakes. So before I move on, I want to say this one more time. I'm going to repeat the verse so it stays with you. Bani Israel are those who, when Musa, the Imam of their time, because all the prophets, in one sense of the word, were imams over their people, especially great prophets like Muhammad Muhammad had the station of an imam as well, right? Musa alayhi salam had the station of the imam. Ibrahim alayhi salam had the station of the imam of the time. Musa tells Bani Israel, go and fight those oppressors. They say, you go with your Lord, you fight them. We will be sitting right here. Okay. Now I want to go to verse 25. And this is Musa alayhi salam's response to what they said. This is such a sad verse. 25. He said, my Lord. He doesn't know what to say to these people. He turns to his Lord, my Lord. Indeed, I do not possess except myself. My Lord, indeed, I do not possess except myself and my brother. So part us from the defiantly disobedient people. Musa's heart becomes so filled with grief. Can you imagine a prophet of God, a person who has been given the highest degree of patience, the highest degree of tolerance? He has reached this point where he says, my Lord, indeed, I do not possess except myself. I don't have anyone except me and my brother. So just distance me from these defiantly disobedient. قال ربي إني لا أملك إلا نفسي وأخي فافرق بيننا وبين القوم الفاسقين. Allah protect us. Maybe the worst thing that could possibly happen to us is not bombs falling on our heads, is not, all the oppressions, poverty, and all the backbiting we have to face, and all the wretchedness of this dunya. Put that on one side. Worse than any of that, God forbid, is when Imam Zaman alayhi salam comes, that he says such a thing about us. Oh Allah, distance me from these people, because they're defiantly disobedient. Inshallah, that won't happen. And I'll tell you why that won't happen. Because this generation, dear brothers and sisters, are the awaited generation. The Holy Prophet, and I said this before, but I'll repeat it again, the Holy Prophet was missing us. He looked into the distance and he said, I miss my brothers. I miss my brothers. He said, his companions say to him, are we not your brothers? He said, no, you're my companions. You're sitting with me. You're seeing with me, but you don't have the faith that those people will have in Akhirul Zaman. They will believe in me. They will love me. They will love my Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, even though they have never seen me. Insha'Allah, dear brothers and sisters, we are the opposite of the Jews, opposite of Bani Israel, if we truly strive to be. And we are those people who will put rest, comfort, and joy into the heart of Imam Zaman alayhi salam. So the final verse that I want to recite is this verse, 26. Allah said, so this is after Musa's heart has been shattered, then mended, then that anger subsides, and then finally he tells these people to fight, and they give such a despicable response to him. At this point, he's so devastated. He says, oh Allah, that's it, just distance me from these people. Then indeed it is forbidden for them for 40 years in which they will wander throughout the land. So do not grieve over the defiantly disobedient people. Okay. قال إنها محرمة عليهم 40 سنة يتيهون في الأرض فلا يأس على القوم الفاسقين. Do not grieve over these defiantly disobedient people. They were defiantly disobedient then, and anyone who has adopted their religion, their creed, their mentality, Allah is giving us a reminder, whether it is Christians or Shia, Sunni, whoever behaves like Bani Israel, whoever behaves like the Jews, whoever acts like them and has their mentality will be raised with them, no matter what they call themselves. Okay? And Allah is saying, do not grieve for them, because they're defiantly disobedient people. They deserve everything that is coming their way. This, dear brothers and sisters, is when Bani Israel had to, just because they refused to fight, they became stranded. They were going this way and that way for 40 years in the desert. During this time, they were distanced from Musa alayhi salam, and this is when Musa goes in search of Hyder alayhi salam. And he parts himself and he says, I need to look after my own spirituality for once. I need to find my own higher thing. I can't deal with these people for now. And this is actually a message for all of us also, that sometimes when you dedicate yourself to guiding people, to awakening people, many of you are going to enter the field of soft war. You're going to enter the cyberspace. You're going to try to make people wake up. Eventually, you might reach a state where you understand totally and clearly community are not the chosen ones, right? They're not the ones who are going to understand. And there comes a time where you need to start to search for Khidr, your Khidr. You need to increase your knowledge. And so you take a bit of a time away from them, right? And that's where this beautiful start of that's part of the story begins for Prophet Musa alayhi salam. So I believe that's another visually striking moment to leave the story, inshallah. And I think either in the next session, if not the next session, the session after that, we're actually going to complete the story of Musa as per the Quran. Remember, if you go to the ahadith, especially to Hayat al-Qulub and the books of tafsir, you're going to find that there's a great deal more that actually took place. But we are highlighting those parts from the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has handpicked for us to give special care and attention and focus to. So the Bani Israel are now wandering for 40 years in the desert. That's where we're gonna pick up from in the next session, inshallah. We're going to go for the Q&A session now. For anybody who has their own thoughts, ideas, and opinions, or they have questions of their own, do not hesitate. Please don't hesitate. I love the things that you guys are saying, and I believe that other people are also benefiting from those things. Don't hold back. Please do share your thoughts. We'll go to that session now. ببركة الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Okay, Sister Sayyidah Mahdiya, if she can be unmuted.
Salaam